I'm Dane Rose, and welcome to 100 Skills that enable your success as a Filipina. Part 1. The first and most important skill is knowing your goal, knowing what success looks like for you. And what I mean by that is there's a wonderful story of someone climbing a ladder. And they climb this ladder of their life for many years. And finally, they get to the top of the ladder. But it's leaning against the wrong building, meaning they achieve their goal, but it doesn't bring them happiness. Now, I experienced this in my 30s in the US when I achieved everything that people told me would make me happy, but I felt worse. I had more money, I had more time, I had more freedom, I had a beautiful house, but I felt worse. And it was very difficult to understand why. Why did I feel worse after arriving at my goals, right? And some of this is just the fact that it's good to move towards something. It's good to grow. It's good to have an ambition. And if it's fulfilled, if you have nothing left to do, then there's a lack of growth, a lack of movement. But the first and most important skill of a successful Filipina is to know your goal. And if you do this well, when you climb to the top, you will not discover that it's pointless, that you've wasted a lot of time achieving the wrong thing. But it will be a goal that fulfills you as you arrive and as you move on that goal. You will be more and more fulfilled. So this is perhaps the most important foundation of any journey of success, to know what's important to you. That's step 1. Now, step 2 is taking control of your body in terms of pregnancy. Meaning, in my times in the Philippines, talking with hundreds of different women, they want to do something, they want to experience something, but they can't. They can't do this job because they have children. They can't go on this vacation because they have children. And usually what that means is they had a child young without thinking about it. And for the rest of their life, or the next 20 years, their actions are controlled by the lack of control. In other words, when they didn't control the situation during pregnancy, right? Wearing a condom, taking birth control medicine, picking the right guy, getting married first, making sure that there's enough money and support to take care of the child. When they didn't control things early on, their whole life is controlled by their lack of control. And this is an interesting paradox. You'll see many times that if you don't control something, then you are controlled. For example, if you don't think about money at all, usually you're poor. And if you're poor, you are controlled by money, right? So you can control and think about money, or you can say, oh, right, let it be. And then you are controlled by money because you don't have any, right? And so there's this interesting paradox. But the second skill is to take control of a future of where you want to go, and see where having a child plays into that sense of success, so that 20 years of your life are not controlled by having a child, right? The second skill, right, that expands your possibilities, right? Because what is success? It's access to the kind of knowledge, the kinds of energy, the kinds of experiences that you want to have, right? If you want something and you know how to create it, that's success. And if you want the thing that will actually bring you fulfillment, right, that's even greater success. Now, speaking English fluently will expand your possibilities. It won't limit them, meaning you don't have to get a job speaking English. You can still get a job speaking Japanese or Chinese or Tagalog. But if you have the potential to speak English well, it opens up possibilities. Possibilities in relationship with English-speaking people. Possibility for doing work as an interpreter. Possibilities as an English teacher. Possibilities doing nursing work in an English country. It opens up possibilities. So speaking English well, and to that, there's an app called Duolingo that's free that you can download on your phone and start speak English. Studying useful knowledge on YouTube is the third skill that I want to focus on, because we live in an abundance of information. There is more information today than emperors, right? King Philip of Spain does not have as much information as you do, right? The Spanish king for which the Philippines is founded, didn't have YouTube, didn't have Google, right? The early popes did not have Google, did not have YouTube, right? The Emperor of China did not have YouTube, did not have Google. You do. It is a power that is there if you use it, right? Now, you can scroll through TikTok for 1,000 hours a month, right? No one's going to stop you. You can scroll your whole life through TikTok. Or you can decide, what knowledge would I like to learn? What would I like to study? And who do I want to learn it from? Who are the experts in the world? Who knows the most about selling? If I want to increase my sales in my marketing job, who knows the most about that? Well, who knows the most about selling? You can spend an hour of research. And then very likely they have YouTube videos that you can watch for free. And in 5 hours, you can learn some of the best selling techniques in the world. Or what about basket weaving? Or what about starting a business? What about riding a motorcycle safely? What do you want to learn? Make a list of things that, if you learn them, will increase your excitement about life, your success in life, that will make you more valuable to other people. And study those skills on YouTube, learning for free from the very smartest, best people in the world. Number 4, emergency preparedness plans. What are you going to do in the next earthquake? What's your plan? What are you going to do when the next tornado, when the next, what do you call them? Anyway, the next big storm knocks things out. The bank goes bankrupt. The economy goes down. You lose your job. What's your plan for the next crisis in your life? Because they will happen. As you go through life, there will be at least 4 major crises. Someone important dies, your husband dies, the money is stolen, a child dies, you lose your job, the house is knocked over, a fire burns through the land. In your life, there will be at least 4 major crises. And it's not your fault that you will have a major crisis come up again and again. However, if you know that, if you listen to your parents and you say, did you have a perfect life? And they say, no, I didn't. The house burned down in this year, uncle did this, and then the government did this, and there were big crises. Ask your parents, ask your grandparents, what were the 4 big tragedies of their life? So it is not your fault that you will have major tragedies. That's not your fault. But it is your fault if understanding that your grandparents had big problems, that your friends' grandparents had big problems, that your parents have big problems, but you think that you will not have any big problems. That is your fault, right? That's faulty thinking. It's not rational. So the question is, could you solve your parents' problems, right? What would you do? Ask your parents or your grandparents or your uncles to list down the problem that happened, and then think, how would I solve that problem if it happened to me today? Right? So figure out a plan for the next big crisis. What are you going to do? Where are you going to go? How will you earn money? How will you survive? How will you mend your broken heart when the next crisis hits? And write it down. I will do this, and if that doesn't work, I will do this, and if that doesn't work, I will do this, right? So that's a useful skill. And that brings us to skill number 5, which is thinking, right? What is thinking? Right? Because at the core of anything, we have possibilities, right? We have possibilities. All these different things we could do. We could do this, 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 this. Now, thinking helps you analyze. If I do this thing, it will be good for this, but it will be bad for that. If I do this, it will be good for that and good for that, but it's very expensive. If I do this thing, it will be bad for this, but it will be good for that, right? Now, if you can think, if you can sort through 100 possibilities and say, overall, this is the best choice for me, you have a powerful skill. You can apply that skill in any area of your life now, in the future, and in the distant future. It's a very useful skill to analyze the benefits and the costs in different areas. This will make my boyfriend very happy, but it will risk my health. This will be healthy, but it's boring. Right? This will help the environment, but I won't make as much money. Right? You have to weigh these different values and learn to make analytical decisions. Otherwise, there's no growth, there's no evolution. And your life will suffer. Now, the next part of thinking, once you learn to think, you will find that there's a tension between short-term thinking, right, and long-term thinking. So, for example, if you borrow some money from a money shark, someone who gives you a loan but charges a high interest rate, if you borrow some money from a money shark and then you go and buy a bathing costume and a nice little hat and some makeup, well, the hat gets old, the makeup wears out, but now you have to pay the loan back with interest. And you don't have any money because if you had money, you wouldn't have gone to the money shark. right? You would have spent your own money. So it's good in the short term. You get to have your hat and your makeup. But in the long term, it's bad, right? It's bad in the long term because now you have high interest rates and somebody bothering you to pay them, right? So the best thing in the short term is often the worst thing in the long term. The best thing in the long term is often the worst thing in the short term. For example, you want to lose weight. You want to get in shape. That's something I would enjoy doing, right? Lose weight, get in shape, good idea, right? But it's not good in the short term. You have to eat less sugar. You have to eat less cheese. You have to eat less bread. But bread is good. Sugar is good, right? Cheese is good. But in the long run, being healthier, having more muscle, less fat, is also good, right? And so there's a balance. Now, different cultures emphasize different kinds of thinking, right? Warmer climates, such as the Philippines, Thailand, often think about the moment, right? Cold climates, for example, if you live in New York, every winter there's 3 feet of snow, 1 meter of snow. So if in the summer you don't think about the winter, you're dead, right? Because, right, in the summer it's nice, you go swimming. Who wants to go and cut wood in the summer? Nobody, right? You want to go swimming, you want to enjoy the weather. But in the wintertime, there's 3 feet of snow. You can't cut wood. You can't move around. It's too deep. And so you die of cold because you have no wood for the fire, right? And so cold climates, like Denmark, northern United States, Canada, the weather demands that you think about the future. You think long term, not just short term. But warm climates like the Philippines, it's never cold, right? And so there's more of a tendency for short-term thinking. So in long-term thinking, the skill is to think, where would you be in 10 years? If you do this, if you make this change, in 10 years, where will you be different? For example, if you study a new skill and start a business, when I started my business at age 17, the first 10 years didn't make me a lot of money because I was learning. I didn't know what I was doing. So I made less money than an employee, right? So if you look at the trajectory, this is where short and long-term thinking is important. If I was an employee, if I worked at somebody else's company, I would have made a reasonable amount this first year, and I would have slowly made a little bit more every 10 years, right? The first 10 years, I would have made a reasonable amount, enough to live, right? And the second 10 years, I would have made more, and the third 10 years would have made some more, right? So that's, right? If you're thinking in the short term, you want to be an employee. You have to buy things. If you're the business owner, you have to buy things. You have to buy tools for your business. You have to buy a car for this, because it requires capital to start a business. Equipment, rents, savings, taxes. You have to spend a lot of money to start a business, but you don't make a lot of money at the beginning because you don't have a lot of customers and things like that, right? So it's cheaper and easier to be an employee for maybe the first 10 years. So the first 10 years of my business, I made less money than an employee. Then the next 10 years, I made a little bit more than an employee. And the last 10 years, I made 10 times more than an employee, right? So that's thinking 30 years, right? So my first whole year of business, I made less money than if I was an employee. And I spent more money because I had to buy things, right? But in my last year of business, I made 10 times more than an employee, right? Because it's a long-term vision, right? That pays off at the end, right? So knowing when to think short and long-term is an incredibly useful skill. And it requires analyzing when you make a decision, what's the short-term benefit? What's the long-term benefit, right? And this is where you also need mentors, right? Finding mentors, going back to YouTube, etc., that can teach you what are the choices you can make now that make an enormous difference, right? So number 6 is the art of finding mentors, finding experts, and then learning from them, right? Now, this is also where learning not to be a scammer is really useful, right? Because you can scam people for a short period of time and you make more money in the short term. You can scam a boyfriend, lie, cheat, make up stories, right? But a good boyfriend will leave, right? A bad boyfriend will stay, but now you have a bad boyfriend, right? So you lose. If you scam your customers, you say, oh, I will do this and this on time, and then you don't do it. Or you say, okay, give me a loan, and then I will pay it back, and then you don't do it, right? Well, pretty soon you have no one to borrow money from. Nobody trusts you. So you think you're being very clever because you get free money, or you get free sex, or you get free support. But you're really being very stupid because all of the best people will leave in a matter of months or years, and only the bad people will be left. So you think you are getting this great benefit, but really you're filling your whole life with rotten people. You have to remember all your scams. You're filling your head with lies, right? And you're denying yourself the opportunity to truly grow and become an amazing person that reaches your potential and earns the success that you want for the long term. That concludes part 1. Stay tuned for part 2.